New at 10, Hawaii's Attorney General is once again declining to investigate an undisclosed lawmaker who allegedly accepted a $35,000 bribe in a paper bag in 2022. AG Ann Lopez says a state investigation would interfere with the federal investigation by the U.S. Attorney General that is already underway. The mystery lawmaker was allegedly tied to Senator J. Kalani English and Representative Ty Cullen, who were both convicted of taking bribes from wastewater company owner Milton Choi. More than 900 people have signed a petition urging the legislature to hold public hearings to identify the lawmaker. Retired federal public defender Alexander Silvert, who started the petition, says the AG's decision not to open a case could sway legislators to ignore the issue.
It's a very narrow and focused investigation. It's not a parallel investigation, as the AG keeps phrasing it. So I believe that their response to saying they will not conduct investigation is not proper and is actually misleading. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And at this point, given the absolute total resistance that is being given out by the leadership and by the Attorney General's office to conducting its own state investigation in any manner whatsoever, this is a forest fire.
Hawaii's AG did say her office is open to assisting federal investigators if needed.